All right, we are live. Welcome, coaches. How are y'all doing today? Hope you're safe, Coach. If I forgot to tell you this off air, if I just randomly cut off, we're in the middle of a bad thunderstorm right now. That just it's dark outside. Hopefully, no hurricanes or anything are coming this way yet. But how you doing, man? You doing okay?
Oh yeah, you live in Idaho. You don't have to worry about much unless you're attacked by a grizzly bear. Life's pretty simple here. No tornadoes, no hurricanes. I used to live in South Carolina, and I knew hurricane season by the date. In Idaho, there's just dry and drier season, so everything's good here.
How often do you see a grizzly bear?
You have to hike. You have to go up in the mountains to see them, but like my house is probably 2,000 feet above sea level. But if you literally were to walk out on my back porch and look outside right now, you could see a mountain that's about 6,500 feet of elevation. If you get up there, you'll see them every so often. You'll see a moose or an elk and stuff like that. But hunting season's football season, and so as soon as the game's over on Friday night, my kids go kill really large things and bring them home. This is interesting for your listening audience. This might be the most applicable thing they get all day. If you want to lure a grizzly bear to your house to hunt it, which it's Idaho, right? So they have a completely different take on gun rights here. So you can pretty much just shoot anything you want here. But if you want to lure a grizzly bear into a kill zone, it is Purina dog food and bacon grease mixed up in a trash can and then dump it out in your yard, and you are sure to get a grizzly bear. I am assured of this by several of my colleagues, to which I responded, I have a Chihuahua and a Golden Lab. I don't really need to see a grizzly bear. I mean, it's okay. I can go to the zoo for this. But so you have to kind of go looking for them. But yes, they are here.
Okay, and yeah, I do not want to poop my pants when I see one right on my front door knocking.
People say they're not mean, but when you're 800 or 900 pounds and have razor sharp claws and can crush a bowling ball with your mouth, I'd prefer you not come to my barbecue. Is kind of the way I process that.
I completely agree. All right, coaches, welcome. Coach, if they don't know who you are, could you give us a little quick overview of why you coach football and who you are, and we'll get right into talking about Gap Scheme RPOs.
Yeah, I've coached. This is going to be this is going to be my 22nd fall coaching football. Originally from Central Illinois, lived in the Carolinas for most of my coaching career. That's how I got hooked up with Ron. And by the way, Ron, you do a great job for coaching.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do. And then moved out here to Idaho 2 years ago. This will be my third football season here. But about 3-4 years ago, started a consulting group called Surface to Air System. Got about 250 schools across the country and now internationally that are members. And we just try to do a lot of stuff, providing content for coaches, writing books, producing videos, webinars, interactive talks, game planning stuff on the weekend. We've been doing that for several years now, and that's a big part of what we do. When I started out coaching when I was really young, I was 19 when I started coaching, I'd call guys up and ask for help, and they just tell you to take a hike. Everything was a secret. Nobody could share anything with you. And so I always said, when I started coaching and got into it, I wanted to give back and help people. So we spend a rather inordinate amount of time trying to give back and help coaches and stuff like that. And to your point of why I coach, it's very simple for me. I feel like that's kind of what God led me to do. I'm supposed to take care of people in this world and feed them. And I'm really, the things I talk most about is not even X's and O's. One of the things I'm most proud about is we have a nutrition program we built at our school. We feed low-income kids every single day at our school and take good care of them and those sorts of things. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you take care of people's kids, they'll let you make $50,000-$60,000 for running around wearing mesh shorts and playing a kids game. And so that's kind of who I am and what I do. So it sure as hell beats growing up and getting a real job for a living. So
yes, cool. I agree. And coaches, all right, we got some coaches. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We will get to them. If you're watching this on Facebook, right above is a link that you click it. It'll give you permission to see your picture and everything. Rod says, "What's up, coaches? How you doing?" Steffi, I hope I'm saying that right. I math. I'm not grammar in English, so I can't say anything. How you doing? Mario, what's going on in Jersey? Hopefully you're safe from that hurricane that just went all the way through there. Coach Terrence, look at that, man. Loving you right there, dude. Loving you right. 3 hours. I hear you, man. All right, and we got Aaron. What's going on? So, welcome again. Any questions? Put them in chat. We will ask. My first question to you, Coach, is why Gap Scheme RPOs? Like, you've been a zone guy, but you're not. For the past 3 years, I've been keeping my eye on you. You've kind of been going more and more to the Gap schemes. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been a pretty interesting evolution for us. When we first started RPOing people, I can't even remember when it was, probably 2011, maybe 2010, 11, somewhere in there. We really started doing it a lot, and we didn't really need to do more than run inside and outside zone. The fact that we zone scheme things and we threw the ball pretty well got us through. And then we had to start adding some personnel groupings, get into a little bit of 11, a little bit of 12, some split backs, doing some different stuff to kind of try to change the surface. Well, over the last few years, I've really become a big fan of man match zone, those sort of things, match quarters. And when you really dive into those things and you understand what they're doing from a coverage standpoint, defense has evolved. I think it really started probably about 2016, maybe 2017. I started to really see the change where defenses were starting to catch up. They were starting to figure out how to take the conflict players out of conflict, so to speak, and match our routes and basically set their front and then stick their front or overload their front to make inside zone and outside zone more difficult. And so starting in 2018 and then really big in 19 and then massively this offseason, like I went to Iowa this year. I went to North Dakota State this year. Went to a bunch of different places, Weber State this year. Talked to the Boise State guys, Montana State, just really committed, really starting in 2019, but more for 20, that we were going to be heavy power, counter, buck sweep, G lead. We were really going to get into the gap scheme stuff more. And when we broke it all down, 2019 was the first time where we ran as much gap scheme as we ran zone scheme. And the reason why is, Ron, is I think what it does is it limits their answers on defense much more. I've got a good friend that works at the University of California, so name drop moment, Dante Barti, who came to our clinic. And Dante is freaking genius, man. He's got a virology degree. Like, what the hell is that? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, now that COVID's here, now he's really like a guy, right? But yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you could get a degree in that. But, you listen to him for 5 minutes and you're like, right, this is just amazing stuff. Well, I get on the board one day with him and I said, Dante, how are you going to handle two-back power? Well, that sucks. We don't really like two-back power. Okay, well, what about ISO? What about G lead? What about buck sweep? He's like, well, now we have to have different answers. Now we have to turn the page of the proverbial playbook and get to the next page. And so what I really felt like is by adding gap scheme, we make it way more difficult now for you to have one answer for us. So, like, I know my defense, if you just commit to running inside and outside zone, they've got like 9 answers. They just, bam, pull them out and they're ready to go, and that's what they do. But when you run both zone and gap, you become a really big problem. And it's not so much that we don't still run a ton of inside zone. I would say this fall, God willing, we play, probably 40% of our offense will still be running zone schemes. It's still a huge part of what we do. I just don't think it's enough. I don't think you can do just one thing. I think it lets the defense off the hook too much if those 5 linemen are always in unison. But when you start down, and pull around, things get a whole lot different in the box for those guys.
Which one does your kids prefer, scheme-wise? Inside zone, or more of the pinning, the pulling, the down? Like, which one do they enjoy more as an offensive lineman?
It's not even close. If you ask our offensive linemen right now, they'll tell you, let's run A gap power. Like, as soon as we have a bad moment in practice, they're like, let's run A gap power, coach, till the cows come home. They're like, screw all that other stuff you're doing out there. By God, line up, put a tight end in the game, and let's run A gap power. That's what they believe it has mythical qualities, right? And it was so hilarious. You should have seen it. The first day we put in buck sweep, one of my linemen comes up to me and he goes, Coach, this play where you pull 2 guards. I'm like, yeah. He's like, when did you invent that? That is the most amazing thing ever. I said, bro, I literally thought of that yesterday. Like, I made that thing up. And he's like, really? I said, no, dude. It's like, it's been around for like 150 years or something.
It's like the 1930s.
Yeah. But everything that's old is new again, Yeah. And so our linemen are unabashedly fans of A gap power. Everything else is just kind of like whatever, that's French fries. But the steak is A-gap power. They love it. They want to run it. They want it called. They'll turn to the quarterback and they'll be like, just, oh man, it's crazy. Just audible that thing to A-gap power, and we'll drag it five more yards down the field. So
that's from North Dakota State, isn't it? That's what they lived in.
Oh, dude. And you know what's cool about it is, for one thing, shameless plug on those guys. They didn't ask me to, but you talk about the greatest human beings on the planet. The coaching profession is just so amazing. I say this all the time. You meet some real jerks in coaching, but you meet some saints. Like, they're going straight to heaven people. And Brian Ferentz at Iowa is one of them. I sat at the man's house and hung out with him for 3 hours. Great dude. Randy Hedberg, the quarterback coach at North Dakota State, I'm on vacation. And I called him 2 days before we're going through North Dakota and said, hey, can I stop by? It's his day off. He's like, sure, come by. Bring a notepad. I sat there the whole day. Man, I went in there, Rod, I swear. I went in there and I'm like, okay, I have this tiny little bit of knowledge on power. I can pedal in this pond. I might know something. I'm in there 5 minutes and I'm like, dude, I'm the dumbest human being on the planet. I don't know anything about power. I know nothing about power compared to what those guys have forgotten. And I'm just obliterating it as fast as I could. But they've taken it to a whole new level, man. In terms of power read, counter read, the play action off of those plays, the most minute stuff. Got with Courtney Messingham at Kansas State, did a bunch of Zooms with him. He comes off that tree. The attention to detail. You'll be watching a play where they'll gash somebody for 12 yards and they'll back it up and they're like, no, right there, his foot was off. It's like poetry. It's perfection. And it was an eye-opening experience to go see those guys. And we'd already made the commitment to power before I went up there. But I'm telling you what, by God, you leave North Dakota State and you ain't calling A-gap power on I-90 as you're driving. It's –
so, okay, you were in there. What's one big takeaway? One thing that when they talked to you about it or they showed it on the diagram, you were just like, holy shit, that is amazing. I never would have known that if I didn't come here and sit down with you.
Yeah, they don't pull. They don't pull. It's not really a pull. The quarterback and the guard have the exact same footwork when they run power read.
Really?
They both, let's say you're running power read right. They both step back with their left foot. They both step over with their right foot, and they both go vertical. Everything is happening. So that horizontal double team on the over front is shoving it across, and the guard is literally just step back, step over, step up. It's like a big U, like you're shifting a car. And the quarterback's doing the same thing. So when you watch that, and their quarterback's a freaking dude, man. Yeah. He's a dude. But when you watch them, it's unbelievable. You're waiting for a pull, and all of a sudden you just see a lineman just, and he's vertical right now. So they get the ball vertical better than anybody I've ever seen. And when they run A-gap power, they're really just trapping the linebacker in the A-gap. It's called a knockout block. That we kind of stole that term from them. They're just knocking the linebacker out and running underneath. So the thing that shocked me was, I'm like, okay, power, right? We've all been running power since Pop Warner, right? It's probably the first thing we all learned. And I'm like, okay, we'll just pull around. No. And I'm like, oh, we'll go A to B to C. They're like, no. They're like, we're going to go vertical in the A-gap to cut back. And their biggest plays are backside A-gap cuts, which I have to admit, full disclosure, stupidity. For 22 years, I'm telling the back, ram it in the A-gap that's not there, bounce and slide into the B and get what you get. It's always A to A. And when the back shoves it A, you're just watching these 4-yard runs over, and finally he'll just slide and glide in the backside. Bam. Yeah. So what they're kind of doing is they're watching the linebackers run the hump. And when the linebackers try to hump over too fast, that ball goes backside, and there's your 65-yard house call. So it's a game breaker play for them. And I honestly thought they ran it more than they do. It's not a play they go out and run 80 times a game. But what they do is they body shot the hell out of you with it. And it's just such a physical play that the quarterback they've got is a home run hitter. When he starts running power read, that is a home run. But they run a lot of zone. They run a lot of quick game. They're very much a pro-style football team. You can see why Easton Stick, Carson Wentz, Trey Lance will be an NFL quarterback. You can see why they have so many guys go to the NFL because the system it's a mini NFL scheme, and they coach the piss out of it. They are really good coaches.
Yeah, full disclosure, I will stop and watch them when I see them on ESPN or ESPN2, and there really is something about how they take out bigger teams just running that. And when coaches bring up, how dominating they are, because they're a dynasty. It doesn't matter what classification, they are a dynasty. I really don't have anything else to say to it. Like, hey, power can really work. And look at North Dakota State, and I'm like, yeah, you got me there.
Somebody, I got a friend out here that graduated from the University of Oregon, and Oregon was supposed to open with North Dakota State. And they asked me, they said, if that game happens, does NDSU upset Oregon? And I said, no. I said, you can never bet that an FCS team takes out an FBS team. But I said, I will tell you this, from watching how they do business in NDSU, I said, Oregon better pack a damn lunch, and they better be ready, because they're just – and I think that their guys thrive on it. I think their players really love that challenge of everybody goes after us and gives us their best shot. And – the access they're willing to give you, I probably did 10 Zooms with them during COVID and then stopped by. They're just really nice guys. There's a picture of them shaking hands with the president, getting their national championship stuff, at the White House. And you're like, man, these people kind of done some things, and I'm just some ball coach from Idaho. And they treat you great. They treat you first class. They help you out. It's just, I can't say enough about the professionalism. And it comes obviously from the top. That's just the way they do business, and it's really, really neat to see.
Yeah, and I mean, you're seeing the fruits of their labor now. That tree at Kansas State. I mean, It is a system.
I wouldn't. People keep talking about, well, Kansas State doesn't have this and they don't have that. I mean, for one thing, those kids are tough and they're winners. Bill Snyder made that a place. I have no doubt you're not going to want to play Kansas State in the Big 12 here in another year or two. I mean, that thing's going to get rolling, and they're going to be a problem. And what else is there to do in Manhattan, Kansas, besides watch the Wildcats, right?
I know. All right, so we got some more coaches in here. Brandon, what's going on, man? Hopefully you're safe. Mario, what's going on? I'm glad you've got your power back. We got Slade Singleton in the house. Welcome, Coach. How you doing, man?
Hey, Slade.
We got Ant in. This is a great video. Thank you. You make it great, buddy. What I want to talk about is, I got a question. I've noticed maybe this past year you kind of got big into belly, like quarterback belly. What made you go with the belly?
I liked it because whether it's tight side or open side, we actually block it a little differently. What I like about it is, years and years and years ago, when I first started out coaching football, I grew up in a little bitty town in central Illinois, and the first guy I coached for, he's passed away of cancer now, but he was a wing T coach. Like, the first time I ever coached was in the wing T. And I can remember us going out and running damn belly until I was so sick of hearing them call belly anymore. And the thing that really intrigued me about it wasn't the blocking of it. It was the belly path of the running back. I was always so intrigued. I'm like, that's such a – like, that track really sets him up to see the ball hit well and cut back or bounce it out. So I got to playing with it, and I talked to a few coaches around the country that are big in gun wing T stuff. And I'm like, dude, I can do this. We can adapt this. And so the footwork really got me. Is nobody really ever, like, people showed me how to block it. They showed me different ways they tag it. But the footwork was what I had to work on for the RPO game. And what I came up with is, if you imagine you're Trey right, tight end right, twins right, is we tell that quarterback when the ball snapped, okay, you're immediately going to catch the snap, okay? You're going to catch the snap, and you're going to immediately turn your body and get your eyes to the RPO. So you're going to cross your left, you're going to step with your right, just a little punch step with your right. You're going to cross over with your left, and when your left foot hits the ground, you're either going to bring the ball up to throw the RPO, or you're going to stick the right foot back in the ground and go north-south right now. And what it does is it times it up for a B to C gap run. And what I loved about it is, I think it's so deceptive, because if you think about people's nickel, star, Sam, strong safety, whatever the hell people call that guy that stands out there on the edge of the box, when he's standing out there, he's trying to get a visual cue, right? He's trying to say, do I fall in or do I go play the pass? Well, the reason he's got a really easy visual cue is because the quarterback takes a snap, sticks it in the running back's belly, rides it, and we do it every day trying to work on that mesh point, but quarterbacks get lazy and they start bringing their eyes, they start bringing the ball, or they start staring down. They start tipping that guy off, that nickel off of, okay, I can fall in the box, or okay, I can get out. Well, when the quarterback's got the ball in his hands and he's turning at you with the ball high, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to have to play. You're either going to come to the box and let him throw the ball outside you, or you're going to hold on the receiver and he's going to tote it right up inside of you. And so I thought that was the part I loved the most, is it elongates the read for the quarterback. And everybody's always like, oh, you don't want to elongate the read. You want quick decision, quick decision. Yes, if they're a bad defense. But if they're a well-coached defense, that nickel's going to sit there and play games with you. He's going to rock, play. And so now you're using his good coaching against him. And so I like it better as a tight end side play. I love putting tight end to the field, twins to the field, and just running that ball in there on the tight end side and just telling the quarterback, read the nickel. If the nickel's a box player, you're not. If he's not a box player, you are. And, that's not rocket science, but it's a pretty damn good football play.
Now, what did you determine? Like, did they play the pass a lot more than the run, or did they stick their nose in a lot more and you were able to throw the ball easier? Is that what happened?
They let us run it almost exclusively.
Really?
We ran the piss out of it. Now, I don't know if that's because it was first year we did it in 19, but, dude, that quarterback can pull that ball high and boom, they're gone. That nickel's out. The strong safety or the hash safety is over. The corner's fitting one, and it's 3-on-2 on that triangle, and we just run it. And we tried everything, man. We tried double hitches. We tried.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, what was the RPO you attached to it?
Yeah, oxygen, you name it. We've done it. I mean, taper, fade, slant. I mean, everything. Trying to get that nickel to go. Like we even tried just throwing bubble and see if we could get bubble out there. And I mean, if we ran it 10 times in a game, like once, we'd get the throw. So essentially, those two receivers are just blocking three guys by doing whatever you want. And so what we started doing is we told the quarterback, just signal something to them because they're going to cover it anyway. So just take what they give you and live with it.
I understand. Is that the Chihuahua?
Yeah, damn dog.
That's fine, man. Mine's downstairs. If not, it'd be licking my foot. I don't know why it likes my foot. It's weird. It's weird. All right, let's get the power and counter. Do you put those in your install on the same day, or there's 2 separate days?
2 separate days. So what we do is we power everything. Now, one of the other things I really got from like the O-line coach and stuff up at NDSU is they said if you run inside and outside zone, you should run inside and outside power. So we actually still carry a C-gap power where we long pull the guard. And so what we'll do is on power day, we'll put in A-gap, C-gap, and then we'll put in power read. We put the whole thing in on one day. And then the next day we come back and we run GY counter. And then when we get GY counter put in, we'll actually teach counter read, because that's been a big investment this offseason, is not just running power read, but running counter read as well, because the two complement each other pretty darn well. And so you've got those 2 gap days. And then what I do is I put belly and buck sweep in the same day. So like we'd have an inside zone install, an outside zone install, power, counter, buck, belly. So you can essentially get the run game in 5 days. Now, you know how it is. You'll put stuff in. We'll put fly sweep in. We'll put speed op in, little wrinkles here and there. But those are kind of our big 5. We call it the Power 5, which doesn't really have a very good moniker with what they're doing right now. But we'll put those 5 things in, and that's the bread and butter. Like if you want to beat us, I always laugh, Ron. People get so finicky about film, man. They're like, "Oh my God, you can't have my film. You can't see my film." I'm like, okay, well, you're playing them at high school. Here, let me solve some problems for you. Inside, outside, power, counter, buck, belly. There you go. It's all going to be RPO'd every single play, and you're going to have to defend 8 billion formation groupings. There you go. Like, what difference does it make, right? I mean, we're all kind of living in the same world, the difference is how well you teach it and how well you communicate it and how much you get your kids to buy into it. But our kids are like this. I don't have it on right now. I just got a regular I'm a Husky shirt on, but we've got shirts that our kids all wear that just says physical football on it. And that's become like our moniker. Like that's all we talk about. We don't talk about being athletic. We don't talk about being strong. We're physical. If you play us, you're going to get left with welts. And we're about 1/3 the enrollment of almost everybody we play. But when you roll up to play us, we try to make it an unpleasant experience for you.
I understand. I want to get back to the counter read real quick, but some coaches are talking. Ricky, what's going on, man, from Ohio? How you doing, sir? Austin, been looking forward to this one. Heading your way. Look at that. I may have to call you again about some places to look at.
Yeah, do it.
All right. You got one. You got Coach right here. You got another one right here. You got your fan club, man.
Yeah, the S2A guys they're repping it, man. They're on here today. That's awesome.
I like it. Now, could you bring up that whiteboard like we were messing around with real quick, and just I'm curious about the counter read. I want to see how you draw that up. And also, coaches, while he does that, Coach has a book. I'm going to drop that in chat real quick. And if you're watching this on Facebook, put Gap in the comments, and I will come back and I will show you the link. And while you've got that, did you bring it up? Okay. I'm going to add that. There you go. Boom. Go ahead, Coach. Take it away.
So
and I will say, I'm sorry. You do really well on these diagrams, like drawing. I've tried to use this, and I look like a third grader with half a hand trying to draw using this app. Like, it's awful. So I just want to say kudos to you, man, for drawing really well.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, I'll tell you what. This is a cool little gig you got going here. I like this.
Yeah, man. I discovered this about 3 weeks ago, and I'm in love with it. It's a lot better than Zoom.
Don't you wish you just invented it? You can just retire. All right. So here it is in a nutshell. So I guess let's start by making sure everybody understands what does power read mean. When I say power read, we're going to hit and run double team the first down lineman to the second linebacker in the box. We'll block it back. We step and pick from the tackle out, and then we pull the guard through. We're on an outside zone track, and we read that cat right there. So that is power read. Okay. When we say counter read, here's where things change. Counter read means this cat is going to come trap the end, and we're actually going to run through the trap block, and we're reading that guy right there. Okay, so when you counter read, you read second level A gap linebacker. When you power read, you read C gap defender, basically. So if you're looking at that, you go, well, coach, that makes no freaking sense because this guy's going to hang out. We call that a +1. When we get a +1 run, we just solve it like this. We just put the tailback over, and we call H counter read, and the tailback goes and arcs the will backer. We come and we trap your 5 technique, and we put eyes on your mic. So it's step back, step over, step down is how the footwork works. And we tell our quarterback, if that linebacker is playing A gap, staring at you, taking away that cylinder, you give the ball. We're going out here and we're going to win on the perimeter. If that cat so much as steps like he's going to try to be a straight player over the top, then you take the ball north-south and replace him right now. And I'm telling you what, Ron, you talk about a friggin' home run hitter. You power and counter and power, and then mix a little zone in, and you start hitting them with power read, and they start kind of trying to flip people because, right, their answer is simple, right? They're going to go, let me just change the color. They're going to want to do this, right? They're going to say, well, screw this power read business. I'm going to come slam that cat in there, loop that guy around, and I'll +1. Well, what happens is that guard stalemates him right there, and bam, that linebacker runs out of the A gap, and your quarterback hits the free safety 10 yards down the field. And we take a lot of pride in our quarterbacks lifting weights with our offensive linemen. So my guy's 6'3", 187, and he can out power clean most of the team. So, and he throws a good ball. I mean, he's not a Tim Tebow. I mean, he spins it. He goes to quarterback camps and all that. But when he gets downhill on you, he's a rascal now. So it to me, it completely changes the narrative of being a home run hitting play. So that's something that we ran a little power read last year. Adding power and counter read to our repertoire was a big part of what we wanted to do for 2020.
Yeah, that counter read. I'm glad I had you draw that up. You're essentially getting a twofer.
Yeah,
with you're trapping the 5, but you're blocking him and the middle linebacker, because I guarantee you, especially in high school, that middle linebacker is just going to fly right over top.
Oh yeah, I mean he wants to, and he's being coached to, right?
Yeah.
I'll show you this too. This is probably just cheating right here. This is not a nice thing to do to people. It's kind of an unchristian thing to do, actually. But
well, you got that. Someone already. Again, guys, if you're on Facebook, click that link above so we can see your name and your picture. But someone's already got your book when it came out and added it to his collection.
Oh, really? Awesome. That's awesome. And I don't remember. There's not a lot of power and counter read in there. Like there's going to be. I'm already started on the next book, and we'll spend a lot more time on that. But if you want like a real good breakdown of power, like how we block power and counter and buck sweep, that book is definitely your jam. I go into pretty graphic detail about how our offensive line blocks all these things in the book. So that to us would be trips tight right, but I would call X counter read to the right. Well, since the X has to be the counter read guy, he knows to step off the ball and tell the H to step on. Okay, and so this is a +1. So watch what happens when you counter read this rascal. They're going to hit and run the over to the Mike. Our rule for our tight end is if you get an odd front, double down. If you get an even front, arc to pressure. So we're going to fit number 1, number 2, and we've already got a guy for your alley runner. He'll just decide if the Mike is humping fast, he'll block him. If not, he'll go all the way to the free. Now bring that guy, trap that cat right there, take that guy through the alley. And now if the Sam says, oh, piss, that's not good, I'm about ready to get totally outflanked, and he decides to run, and like that's what our defense would do. We would try to save that kick out guy, and we would try to run to the perimeter right there. Your quarterback goes bang, and he's got 2 flow players trying to get to the perimeter, and what happens is the quarterback just creases them right there in the A gap. And that's been, like this summer, that's been a huge problem for our defense. Our defense is a big match quarters team. It's really hard to throw the ball on them. They match routes really well. They contest routes really well. They don't like power and counter read, coach. That is not a fan favorite for our defense, because what it does is it forces them to reassess all of those little gimmicks they've got going on and say, okay, we need to be more spot droppers or play zero. And obviously, if you do either one of those, things are a little tougher. So, that's in surface to air. That's really what we do. People ask me all the time, what does it mean to be in surface to air? I'm like, we take things like this and we bend them and manipulate them and tweak them. And the reason we call it surface to air, it's kind of a play on words because obviously that's a defensive missile. But I talk to our guys all the time about changing the surface. We love to change the surface that you as a DC are trying to relate to. And if you think about that play right there, Ron, and just completely let your mind flip the script the other way, imagine the tailback's over here and you bring this guy and you down, pick, trap. Tailback gets that one, X gets that one, fly guy comes through, and that guy's being red. I mean, he's the last dude that can get out there and stop that fly sweep from going down the sideline. But when he does, the quarterback just houses him right through the P gap right there. So it's a tough football play to have run on you. And if you go back and you dig up some Penn State film, Penn State was pretty darn good at it a few years ago when they had that kid that took them to the Rose Bowl. I can't think of the quarterback's name, but
I know you're talking about.
They mixed a lot of power and counter read in. They were pretty darn good at it. So
we have a question about that. Well, Coach wants to know what happens if you're running that and the defensive end jumps outside and the linebacker stays.
Okay, so that's a great question from Coach Weiss, it looks like. So if you've got counter read called and the end jumps outside, he's going to get trapped. And the A-gap linebacker is a filler. The quarterback's going to give that ball. And that's actually happened multiple times. What's going to happen, though, is that defensive end has to get trapped and get run all. Like we tell our guard, you trap to contact. So he's going to be driving, running. Those are the DNs trying to widen, and the guard hits him. It's now a race between your DN, who's being engaged by my guard, trying to get to the sideline and cut off my fly sweep guy.
Yeah.
We love that matchup. Now, if you do it too many times, I'll just call power and be done with it. Or I'll just call same side counter and I'll trap and wrap you. So it sounds like I'm being a smart ass sometimes when I say this, and I never mean for it to sound this way, but I tell people, I'm like, that's why you call different plays, right? Like, my guys all the time, like our coaches and my players, they're like, well, coach, this guy ran all the way out there to stop the play. I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't call that play if that's what they're doing. Maybe we should call friggin' inside zone and run the ball up underneath his ass about 4 times and bring him back down there so we can do it. But if you just get caught, and Coach Weiss, that's a great question. If you just get caught in it and they didn't squeeze scrape, so they basically hop outside and fill, just tell your quarterback, give it. That was your read. The linebacker stayed in the cylinder, give the ball. And, our tailback's a pretty good player. He's an 1,100-yard rusher as a junior. I'll just trust him to take the ball to the perimeter and get me 3 or 4 yards, and I'll call another play.
Yeah, hopefully your guy is better than their guy.
That's what it amounts to. And that fly sweep stuff, we just call it +1. And all I do is I call the play and I say Z or H or X instead of the regular play name. And that just brings another guy to the party. And the tailback knows he just arcs to the first overhang player. And it is a real pain in the ass. Like I sit there sometimes and watch our defense and I'm like, they're like, well, coach, how do we stop? I'm like, well, boys, that's a pain in the ass. I wouldn't want that done to me. I mean, you can stop it, but to me, you can't stop it from a 2-high structure. You've got to get to a 1-high structure. And then all the air raid passing stuff is way more in play when you're 1-high than when you're 2-high. So it's that symbiotic relationship, right? That's one of the reasons to counter back to your question from earlier on is why add gap scheme? Because you can't sit in quarter shells and play me anymore. Like that's what was starting to piss me off. Like in 2016, we had the number 1 scoring offense in the conference, maybe in the state. We were scoring like 45 points a game. Well, the next year we're getting down into the 30s and it just keeps dropping. And well, part of the reason why is people are rushing 3 or 4 guys and they're playing coverage, saying, I'll live with the damage on inside zone. You can only gash me so bad and I'll rob all your routes. Well, you can't rob power read. It's a come home to mama. I mean, I'm just grabbing you by the face and bashing your head in. And so it changes the narrative really quickly. And what I found is it's dropped our turnovers again. It's made our completion percentage higher. Like we're cleaner throwing the ball because
they're worried about the run, which opens up the pass.
There's a lot of people aren't Urban Meyer fans anymore, but he said something pretty damn brilliant. If they're in 2-high, run the ball. If they're 1-high, throw the ball. I mean, I hate to make it that simplistic, and it's not. You could also just say, well, if they're better than you, it doesn't matter what you run. But, if they're 2-high, when I'm in 2-high, I'm trying to get you to hand the ball off. When I'm in 1-high, I'm trying to stop the run. I mean, it's not rocket science. So we felt like we taught the air raid passing game pretty well. So we felt like we could throw the ball on people. What we were missing was the ability to dictate the terms of your box count. And now that we've added a gap scheme, we can do that.
Okay. I like it. Coach asked what software is that? That is AAW board. If you just Google whiteboard, that'll be the first one that comes up. Coach Wheeler says Moorhead playbook staple with that counter read, Saquon on the sweep, McCorsey on the dive. I have seen that. That is a very good play. I'm glad you drew that up. Thank you for that. Coach Weston wants to know, what's your favorite concept from empty and how much do you use the sniffer?
So it depends on if you're talking about running or throwing the ball was our favorite concept from empty. My favorite pass play from empty is actually, we call it Razorback because when Petrino was in Arkansas, he loved option routes. So what we'll do is we'll get in 2x2 and I'll usually put the tight end into the boundary. So we'll have a flex tight end to the boundary and then I'll go empty to the field. And the 2 outside receivers run fades. The 2 inside receivers, the 2 number 2s, will push 4 steps and break out or 5 steps and hitch. They read the leverage. If there's bail coverage, they just hitch at 5 and we throw them the ball. If it's press coverage, they push in and they break out at 4 to clear it out. And then our tailback has what's called a gut route. And what that means is you just gut the defense. You can run anything you want between the hash marks. So he takes off like a bat out of hell and runs right down the pipe. And if the middle of the field's open, we just tell the quarterback, throw it over the Mike's head and let him score. If they close the middle of the field, he will do one of two things. He'll either sell it and break to a hash, or he'll just snap the ball off and sit it down in a zone and play catch with the quarterback. I love doing that to people because it pisses them off because it's just backyard football. It's what every kid wants to do from about 4th grade on, right? Like I always laugh at this when I'm making fun of our fullbacks and tight ends. I said, I love you all to death because I'm a former offensive lineman. But I said, ain't nobody in America ever got their friends together and said, boys, let's go play a good game of ISO out in the backyard. Hey, Johnny, run down that there tree and turn. I bet I can huck it down there to you. That's what everybody does. And so that's what Razorback is. It's just go play catch out of it. Favorite run is power and counter read. I'll empty you out, and then I'll bring any one of a number of guys. The only guy we don't let run fly sweep is our tight end because we told him God just didn't make you for that, boy. I mean, he made you for a lot of things, but not that. And so everybody else can run that fly power counter. So I love to get you an empty because all of our checks for empty are all Spanish words.
Wow.
Cinco and nada and all these, they're all Spanish words. Well, as soon as I start hearing Spanish, I know they've gone to their empty checks. And all of their empty checks end with the same thing. They're either matching quarters or they're playing zero. That's what they're going to do most of the time. They do have a couple other things, but that's most of what they're doing. Well, neither one of those likes power and counter read off fly action. So we're just like, whoop, bam, there's our answer. And that's what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to get you an empty, and I'm going to find out because I know on your call sheet, if you're a DC, you didn't come up with 35 empty checks. You came up with like 2. And you got one that's a man answer and one that's a zone answer, and you're going to play them all night long. And so I like to get it out there and empty early and find out which one it is so that I know whether I'm going to throw it or run it on you. That's empty. Now, you asked about the sniffer. I played with a tight end on the field 97% of the season in 2019. So that'll tell you how much I like a sniffer. We play with him in line. We play with him as a buccaneer, which is a wing, a sniffer. We play with him as a camel, which is a fullback sniffing kind of behind the guard's butt. We play with him as an elk, which means he's set next to the quarterback for split zone and insert zone. We play with him in flex. We play with him in open. We play with him as a lone tight end with trips away. You name it, we do it. And the kid is a great human being. I hear people all the time, they're like, well, Coach, we can't run 11 personnel because we don't have a tight end. My tight end is 6 nothing, maybe 1, 160 nothing pounds. He's slower than I am, and I'm on my 3rd knee surgery. But he's a great blocker. He's got great hands, and he is by far one of the smartest human beings God put on the face of the planet. If you walked up to him, his name's, we call him CJ. If you walked up and you said, CJ, hey, get me in 2x2 right elk, and then bulldog over to buccaneer left, and then reinsert the zone on the right side, he'd go, yeah, I can do that. He'd do that, like right now. He'd do it. And he would look at you and go, yeah. Like he is the prototypical, just conservative, calm, Idaho LDS kid. Doesn't cuss, doesn't get excited, polite, yes sir, no sir. And you'll give him all these million things to do, and he'll go, yep, no problem, got it. And then everybody else is just out there playing. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you have one of those. Ron Mackey, you have that kid at your high school right now. That kid, no sir kid. He's not real fast. He's not real athletic, but he'll do every dirty job known to man. He'll cut, block, pull, and wrap. He'll down block. He'll catch 3 passes a game, and he'll do everything right 100% of the time. Everybody's got that kid. Put him at tight end.
I like it. And then throw him a bone every once in a while.
It's funny. He averages 3 catches a game, and he averages about 5 yards per catch. His stat line is going to be 3 to 5 catches for 20 or 25 yards. But guess what? He's never bitched and complained. He started for me for 3 years. I told him when I put him there, I said, son, you'll start every varsity game. You won't get many touches, but you will be in the starting lineup, and you'll get to play every snap of your high school career. And he's like, sounds good.
Yeah.
Done. Now, the X's and the Z's are all of their bitching and whining about how many times they got the ball thrown to them every day. So it's really it's a reflective moment to hang out with the tight ends because they don't care.
Because they're offensive linemen. I've never – the best kids on the team I will go down swinging are offensive linemen. They're the best ones. They're no pre-bananas. They understand it. They understand it.
We were out there in camp, so we got to have padded camp in July. It was supposed to be in May. We had to move it to July. We're out there one day at padded camp, and we're working on drop back passing. And our quarterback he's going to be a junior. He's going to be pretty darn good, but he's having a junior moment. You know, he's missed the wide receiver 3 plays in a row, so the offense loses. We go out another drive, the offense loses, and so our kids have to condition for the competition, right? If they lose, they have to run for it. Well, finally, one of the guards turns around and goes, I've seen about enough of this shit, Coach Hargitt. And I said, well, what's the problem? He said, if we just run power, he said, our asses will be over there getting a Gatorade right now. He said, can we just run power and settle this? I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, I'm going to call power from every formation known to man. And I said, I'm not going to tell the defense, but we cannot throw an RPO. So we line up and we run power like 17 times and don't get stopped the rest of the day. And the guard turns and goes, told you. And just walks off to get his Gatorade. Oh, my God. How can you not love offensive linemen?
That's what they do, man.
I mean,
that's what they do.
Isn't it funny, though? They're at their nature. They're like the nicest. I don't know where this cliche came from. Everybody talks about big, dumb offensive linemen. All 5 of my starting offensive linemen have like 3.5 GPAs. And they all have girlfriends. And they're all kind of cool. I'm like, where did this come from? Like, the girls kind of like the big, fluffy guy that gets good grades.
They're gentle giants, man.
Yeah, they're very respectful to girls. They, when they're around us, not always the best language, but at school, they don't get in trouble. They use good language. I'm like, dude, it's the receivers that are the problem. The receivers are always the problem.
They are. The special kid. The flashy ones, the ones that score a lot of the touchdowns and do everything like that. You are absolutely right. We really don't have problems with both defensive linemen and offensive linemen.
No, the problem is if you took all those receivers out of the equation, it'd look like a Big Ten West Division rock fight. It would be like Wisconsin, Minnesota from 1994. And so we would all get very bored watching 7-6. So we do have to throw them a slant or a fade once in a while, I guess.
I agree. All right, you got another question? I know you got to go in a minute, so we'll get to this. What's your install progression, more inline or skills position? Okay, so I know you were an air raid. You broke things down to 3 days like that. Have you extended that? You said it takes 5 days. So are you a 5-day install and then you just repeat like that, or do you do something special?
Yeah. So now that we run more Gap stuff, what we've done is in Idaho, you can have 7 padded practices in a 10 consecutive day window. That's your spring practice. And it's great. Like, no helmet acclimation. You just pick a day and bam, full gear. Full tilt. Here we go. So what we've done is we've moved everything to 7 days because we're like, if we have 7 padded days, we're going to install in 7 days. There's no reason to do 3 or 4. So what we've done is we've broken it down really into like 4 or 5 days we get the offense installed. And then the last 2 days I leave as review on my sheet. Okay. So like I'll go inside zone with RPOs, outside zone, RPOs, power, counter, blah, blah, blah. And then on the last 2 days, usually we've already done our drop back passing because of the passing league and 7-on-7 and all that. But we'll go in and we'll work, 7-on-7 stuff. We'll work drop back. We'll work, roll out passes, bootlegs. That's another thing that we could do a whole nother conversation on is I think that, and this just kind of came to me, that's something I should address. If you're going to be a heavy RPO team, Ron, you need to be a damn good play action team. I think you've got to be able to do that. You've got to conflict that world for teams. And so we'll spend a lot of those last 2 days on play action.
Sorry about that, guys. The cavalry is here. That's what the beautiful thing about going live. These are my kids.
Hi.
Say hey. All right. But I totally agree with you. You have to. I mean, if you're going to be a run, yes. All right. If you are going to be a run heavy team, you're going to have to do it.
How are those your kids?
They got all the looks from their mother, not from me. Not from me. As you saw my son fall down right there, he got his coordination from me, but everything else, he got it from my wife.
That's funny. I always say the same thing.
But getting back to what you're saying, yes, yeah. If you're going to run the ball, you do have to be a good boot. Are you more boot guy or a more naked type guy?
We try to pull a guard, but our guards are big physical cats. So to get them out in space, we do. Like, they're able to do it because we run the ball pretty effectively, but I like to come more off of our zone stuff. Like, I love slam, what we call slam naked. So we'll bring a motion man, a fullback, a tight end, something in, and we'll chip your 5 technique and then get out. So I don't know how you term that, if that's truly naked or if that's a slam release, but that's what we love to run. And that's kind of our go-to answer.
Okay. And what's your number one concept that you tag with that?
Comebacks, or we love Y cross, Y sail, which to me is the same play, but obviously the kids see it as 2 different plays. The other thing we've thrown a hell of a lot of glance RPOs, third level RPOs. That's something our quarterback, the guy we've got now, really loves throwing those. He loves the long mesh because he's kind of a big, rangy, long arm kid. He loves the long mesh and then pulling and throwing that 5-step glance post down the field. So we actually created this little pap that we call River and Lake. And the outside receiver will build and go run that 5-step post. And once your corner attaches to that 5-step post, he throws on the brakes and pivots back out to the sideline and square cuts it at about 12 yards. And then we slam release and naked underneath it. And that's a sack of hell right there. That's tough because that corner wants to attach and run with the post because they know we run it in the RPO game. Well, then it's just a double move, and the quarterback just throws it right back there on the numbers, and it's stealing, man. That's just a 12-yard completion waiting to happen. So that's a concept we really like. And then obviously just the old school 12-step comeback that everybody runs. The thing for us is really the window dressing. Like, I try to make it – if I was calling plays and you were the DC and you had 3 films on me, I would try to make it a freaking nightmare and ruin your Sunday. Like, that's what we talk about in the film room every week. Is I'm like, I want that defensive coordinator to be sipping whiskey out of the damn bottle by 4 o'clock on Sunday because I've ruined his weekend.
All the formations and motions and everything.
I mean, as much as we can. Like, when there's certain things you can figure out, all good coaches do. There's certain formations I like power out of and certain ones I like zone out of more. But I try to make it a moving target for you. And we'll come into every game. We'll run some goofy-ass formational stuff and some motion stuff just to ruin your day, just to put it on film so that the next DC has to go, well, that's like – I'll give you a great example. Diamond, and then tight end diamond, and then double tight diamond, and then unbalanced diamond, and running power and counter readout. We freaking love that because we've got 3 pretty good running backs, so we'll run that on you, and then we just won't run it for 2 weeks. Just good enough to make
so you have
go.
Film.
Yeah. And so – that's
that guy.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because my coaches sit there, like, my DC has been dealing with me all summer, and the first opponent we play runs like 2 formations, and he's like, "Thank God that's over." He's like, "That sucked." He's like, they were trying to drop scout cards on us one day, and they were up to like 29 different looks that we regularly come out of, and he's like, "Shit on that." He's like, "Where's 2x2 and 3x1? That's a lot easier." Yeah. And, that's a lot of what we do. But I do think you're right, Ron. I think the RPO game and the PAP game have kind of reached the point where they have to intersect. Yeah. And if you're going to run RPOs and you don't run PAP, then you better be really damn good because you've got to – this is what I tell people. You've got to confuse the defense into understanding – that the ball doesn't just always come out in predetermined places and at predetermined times. They need to be sitting there going, he stuck that in the belly, but last time he pulled it and booted out there and threw it 20 yards down the field. But this time he stuck it in there and he threw it a bubble, and the next time a slant, and the next time a post. That stuff really starts to create that, that kind of question mark in that DC and the DB's minds The days are kind of over screwing with the corners. Most everybody now just mods or megs their corners and says, go play ball. But the safeties are very much in play now. The overhangs and the safeties is who we try to pick on most of the time. D linemen are what they are. Yeah, I mean, if they don't want to move, they ain't going to move. And the Mike backer ain't going to move. And the corners ain't going to move. But the safeties and the overhangs, they got no choice. If you manipulate them, they have to move.
I like it. Coach, I know you got some stuff to do. Coaches, the book right here, his newest book, go ahead. I am dropping the link in chat if you want that. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead, put Gap in the comments. I'll come back. I'll shoot you this link right here, Coach. I appreciate you coming on. We definitely have to do this again because I would like to have something on just straight up nakeds and boots and how you teach that and all of that. You open that loop right there. I'd love to get you back. Is there anything you'd like to say before you have to go?
I just, one, I want to thank you for letting me be on here and thank your listeners for listening to me. I think it's great what you do, getting coaches out there and getting guys connected. I wish this was a thing when I was young coming up. I'm not young anymore, but I wish this was a thing, and I'm really happy that you do it, and I'm happy that I could be a small part of it. And to all those of you guys out there that are, trying to get your football season started or have got your football season started and you're listening to all the negativity about we shouldn't play football and all this, I just want to keep in mind, and I want you to keep in mind, and I say this until I'm blue in the face, football coaches are usually the first line and the last line of defense in the culture of young people. And those young people need us. They need you to make them a sandwich. They need you to support them. They need you to teach them right from wrong. And please, God, football coaches, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep going out there and taking care of young people and keep being a role model and just keep doing the right thing, man, because that's what kids need. Kids need to see adults doing the right thing and standing up for what they believe in, and just keep it up and be safe. Don't get the Rona, and be safe, man.
Bob and Weave, I was trying to see. I had some people already saying Gap, Coach. So I'm going to go ahead and get everybody your stuff because you were the freaking man. I appreciate it. And we definitely have to come back and get to this. I want to know about the nakeds and the boots, man.
Okay, perfect. Let's do it. I'm more than willing to come back and talk, and let's get it on the schedule.
All right. Coaches, thank you so much for being here. Again, if you want the link, if you're watching on Facebook, comment Gap. I'm going ahead right now and sending you that link. If you're watching on YouTube, it will be right after this is over with. It'll be in the description or the very first pinned comment, the link to the book. And until next time, let's continue to master the spread, score points, and have fun. And y'all have a great night.
Thanks, Ron.